Welcome to G Fun Facts Online. Today, we are decoding the Internet of Fire. I want you to imagine you are standing on a jagged tooth of rock, 1,000 feet above the Hordaland coast of Norway. It is the year 955 AD. The wind is screaming across the granite, biting into your skin. You are a Vord, a watchman. You are huddled in a crude stone shelter, your eyes red and stinging from staring at the gray, churning horizon of the North Sea for hours. You are not looking for whales. You are not looking for trade ships. You are looking for dragon heads. Next to you stands a peculiar structure. It looks like a hollow log cabin, packed tight with birch bark, tarred wood, and dry brush. It is called a Viti. Suddenly, a flicker of light pricks the darkness to the south. It is faint, a mere pinprick of orange against the purple twilight. But you know exactly what it means. It is fire from the neighboring peak, 20 miles away. The enemy is coming. Your heart hammers against your ribs. You grab a torch, thrust it into the base of your timber stack, and watch as the flames roar upward. Within minutes, a pillar of fire 30 feet high is raging against the night. 20 miles to the north, another watchman sees your signal and lights his own. Then another, and another. This was the Viking Internet of Fire. Long before fiber optics or satellites, the Norsemen engineered a high-speed, optical communication network capable of transmitting a binary signal. War is here, across the entire length of Norway. This is the story of the Vetivarder, the defense system that turned a loose collection of warring tribes into a unified kingdom. To understand this system, we have to look at the geography of fear. Norway is terrifyingly long. If you were to flip the country on its southern axis, the North Cape would reach all the way to Rome. The coastline, if you include the fjords and islands, is longer than the equator. In the 10th century, the sea was the only road that mattered. The Northern Way, or Norðvegur, was a maritime highway. But this highway was a double-edged sword. An enemy fleet could appear from the mist, burn a village, and vanish before the local chieftain could even strap on his sword belt. The Norwegian kings, particularly Haakon the Good, faced a logistical paradox. They had the manpower to fight off an invasion. The fierce, axe-wielding farmers of the fjords were no strangers to violence. But the king could never be in the right place at the right time. An army in Trondheim was useless if the Danes landed in Stavanger. They needed to move information faster than a longship could sail. They needed to shrink the massive geography of Norway. The solution required utilizing the very landscape that made defense so difficult. The mountains that blocked land travel offered the perfect platform for line-of-sight communication. The peaks were natural watchtowers. The genius behind the formalization of this system was King Haakon the Good. His background is key here. Haakon was not raised in the rough, pagan courts of Norway. As a child, he was fostered in England by King Athelstan, the grandson of Alfred the Great. Athelstan was a master administrator who had organized Anglo-Saxon defenses against the Danes. Growing up in the English court, Haakon witnessed the power of centralized government and organized defense systems. When Haakon returned to Norway to claim his throne from his brutal brother Eric Bloodaxe, he brought these foreign ideas with him. He realized that to hold the kingdom, he had to be an administrator, not just a warlord. Around the year 950 AD, Haakon instituted a sweeping reform. He divided the coastal regions into ship districts. He made a deal with the farmers. The king promised to protect their land rights. In exchange, the farmers provided two things. First, the Leidang, a naval levy where each district built and crewed a warship. Second, the Viti, the beacon system. The farmers were responsible for building and manning the signal fires on the mountain peaks. These two systems were two halves of the same machine. The Leidang was the muscle. The Viti was the nervous system. One was useless without the other. If the beacons were lit but the ships weren't ready, the village burned. If the ships were ready, but the beacons failed, the fleet would sit idle, while the enemy landed hundreds of miles away. Let's talk about the engineering, because this is where popular culture gets it wrong. When we imagine a beacon, thanks to movies, we often picture a simple pile of wood on a mountain, like a bonfire. But a Norse Viti was a piece of military engineering. A simple bonfire might smolder, light too slowly, or collapse in the wind. A Viti had to catch fire instantly and burn with a ferocity that could be seen for 30 kilometers in a blizzard. Archaeological reconstructions and the ancient guleding law describe a constructed tower. It started with a stone base to elevate the timber off the damp ground and provide a draft. The core was a central pole of dry, resinous pine or fir. The wood was stacked in a conical shape, often hollow in the center like a chimney. This design created a stack effect. When the fire was lit at the bottom, the hollow core drew air in rapidly, acting like a blast furnace. The fuel was carefully selected. The Vikings were experts in wood. They knew greenwood smokes and dry wood burns. The Viking was packed with fat wood, which is wood saturated with natural resin, birch bark, and dried brushwood. The result was not a campfire. It was a flare. When lit, a proper Viti would erupt into a pillar of flame almost immediately, minimizing the lag time between spotting the enemy and sending the signal. This system was a depth defense network, categorized into three orders. First, the sea beacons. These were on the outermost islands. They were the eyes of the realm, scanning the open ocean. These were the most dangerous posts. Second, the fjord beacons. These were located further inland on high points along the major fjords, relaying the signal to the interior. Third, the warning beacons. These were local signals used to muster specific villages to man the ships. This hierarchy ensured that a signal could travel linearly along the coast to warn the king, while simultaneously branching sideways into the fjords to mobilize the fleet. However, technology is nothing without the humans who operate it. The system relied entirely on the discipline of the men on the mountain. If a watchman fell asleep, or got drunk, or mistook a whale for a ship, the kingdom could fall. To ensure compliance, Haakon codified the duty into the Gulading law. The section regarding the beacons is brutal. The duty of the watch rotated among the farmers. It was a tax paid in time and misery. If a bailiff climbed the mountain and found the watchman sleeping, the penalty was a massive fine of 12 auras of silver, enough to bankrupt a family. But if the watchman slept, and the enemy actually arrived while he was sleeping, the penalty was utlag, or outlawry. In Viking society, being made an outlaw was a death sentence. You lost all property, all rights, and anyone could kill you without penalty. On the flip side, lighting the beacon without cause was arguably worse. If a nervous watchman lit the fire for a school of porpoises, he triggered a national mobilization. Thousands of men would drop their scythes and launch ships. The economic cost of a false alarm was ruinous, and the penalty for causing one without reasonable cause was severe. Imagine the psychology of the watchman. You are sent up the mountain for a week-long shift. You live in a small stone hut. It is raining sideways. You are cold, you are bored, but you are terrified to close your eyes. Every wave crest looks like a sail. Every shadow looks like a hull. You know that if you light the fire, you change history. If you don't light it, your family might die. To mitigate this, the law required 2 men to be on watch at all times, so they could keep each other awake and verify sightings. The sagas claim that when the beacon at the southernmost tip of Norway was lit, the signal would reach the northernmost Law Rock in 7 nights. Let's look at the math. The distance is roughly 1,500 kilometers. If the weather was clear, light travels instantly. The delay lies in human reaction time. Watchman A sees the fire, takes 30 seconds to run to his beacon, and the fire takes maybe 10 minutes to grow large enough to be seen 20 kilometers away. If the beacons are spaced 20 kilometers apart, there might be 75 beacons in the chain. 75 hops at 15 minutes each is roughly 19 hours. Theoretically, the signal could travel the entire country in less than 1 day. The 7 nights mentioned in the sagas likely accounted for weather delays, or the time it took for the fleet to actually gather once the signal was received. Regardless of the exact hours, the system compressed time. A message that would take a ship 2 weeks to deliver could be delivered by fire in a single night. We have 2 major historical examples that show both the brilliance and the fragility of this system. First, the success at the Battle of Rostorkalv in 955 AD. The sons of Eric Bloodaxe launched a massive surprise invasion. The beacons worked. The chain ignited. King Haakon was in the interior when the news reached him. Because of the warning, he had time to position his smaller force on a strategic ridge. He used the time bought by the beacons to employ psychological warfare, planting standards far apart to make his army look massive. The invaders panicked and were routed. The beacon system had bought the king the initiative. But then, the failure. 6 years later, at the Battle of Fitjar in 961 AD, the sons of Eric returned. They had learned. They knew about the beacons. This time, they moved with extreme stealth, staying far out to sea, beyond the visual range of the outer beacons. They waited for heavy fog, the Achilles heel of the optical telegraph. They landed at Fitjar, where Haakon was holding court. The watchmen were blind. The chain was silent. Haakon was eating lunch when a guard burst in, shouting that ships were landing on the beach. The internet of fire had been severed by weather. Haakon rallied his men and won a tactical victory, but in the final moments, he was struck by a stray arrow and died. The king who built the defense system died because the warning came too late. Today, the legacy of the beacons is confirmed by modern archaeology. Researchers have climbed the peaks known in local folklore as Vetten or Vata. Digging into the soil, they found distinct layers of charcoal separated by soil, proving these sites were burned, rebuilt, and burned again for centuries, from the Viking Age all the way to the Napoleonic Wars. The most enduring legacy is on the map itself. Hundreds of Norwegian hills are named Viten, Vata, or Baune. These names are the ghosts of the watchmen. And of course, we must mention the pop culture connection. J.R.R. Tolkien, a professor of Norse mythology, was undoubtedly aware of this system. The lighting of the beacons of Gondor in The Return of the King is perhaps the most accurate historical reenactment of how the Norse system actually felt. That primal fear of the dark and the relief of seeing a signal that says, "You are not alone." Today, those same peaks often hold radar domes and microwave towers. The technology has changed from birch bark to radar, from longships to F-35s, but the principle remains the same. The geography of Norway still dictates its defense. The high ground is still the key. When you stand on a Norwegian mountain today, look for the blackened soil under the heather. You might be standing on the ashes of a fire that once saved a kingdom. Thanks for listening to G Fun Facts Online.